Today we're going to check out a watch that tries to give you everything, and I do mean everything. At first glance, this looks like a fun, bright, and colorful casual piece with a Bauhaus-inspired design that makes it very suitable for everyday wear. But then they're giving you specs that are more commonly found on dive watches with a full 200 meters of water resistance, sapphire crystal, screw-down crown, and pretty decent lume. And on top of all this, they're including 3 different straps that each completely transform the watch and make it suitable for an entirely different activity. It seems like the designers feel like you should be able to wear this watch doing pretty much anything and everything. And while I'm not sure they really needed to do all that, it's kind of cool that they did, especially since the price is still kept to a pretty astoundingly low $329 entry point. So did this plucky little micro brand based out of Seattle manage to put together the most versatile watch yet? Let's take a look and see. Today we'll be looking at the Timekeeper Type-A from Primitive House. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. And today we are looking at a very affordable watch from a cool little micro brand based out of Seattle. This is actually the second watch, or really the second version of this watch that I've looked at from them. The brand seems to have been through a number of changes since their first Kickstarter a few years back. This is sort of a reinterpretation or a new version of that same watch that they launched on Kickstarter, but pretty much everything about it has been changed, except for the fact that it retains a similar dial layout and a bright, fun color scheme. Real quick, I do need to mention that Primitive House did send in 2 watches for me to keep, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this video. However, other than the watches themselves, I did not receive any additional compensation, nor did Primitive House have any control over the content of this review. So with that out of the way, I want to start by talking about the design of the watch and how I think this watch will most likely be worn. Given the strap options that Primitive House packages with this watch, along with the specifications that it has, I think the idea here is that you're supposed to be able to turn this watch into either a dive watch or a hiking watch or a dress watch, depending on the strap choice and the situation that you want to use it in. And while it can technically function fine in any of those situations, I think that where this watch would shine the most is in just sort of a good, casual, everyday piece. It's very well proportioned with a 38mm diameter, which for me with my 7.5-inch wrist is usually a slightly smaller watch. But because of the size and presence of the dial, I think it wears great on my wrist. When wearing it, I felt like it looked more like a 40mm watch on my wrist. But those modest proportions help it to wear very comfortably, making for a very pleasant wearing experience throughout the day. But the main draw of this watch, I think, is the very fresh and colorful dial designs. I really like the way they've combined a number of different influences, probably most prominently a sort of Bauhaus or Nomos style look, which I think is something that they're trying to emphasize in their new name, Primitive House. It's a very clean layout with simple Arabic numerals, with great contrast and legibility, and a minimalist style that's made way more interesting by the use of color. There are 4 color options available, and all of them are very impactful. The 2 that they sent over to me are the White Dawn and the Dreamer's Black. And you can see that even though these are the same watch, they've used color in 2 very different ways to give 2 very different visual looks. The White Dawn is almost a rainbow of colors with this kind of teal chapter ring going around the outside, orange hour and minute hands, a green small seconds hand with red and blue markings on that subdial. On paper, that sounds like too many different colors to use in one watch dial, but here it kind of works. The Dreamer's Black uses a much smaller color palette, but still makes for a very bold look with this black dial and then pink accents, especially with that pink subdial. That little circle of pink really pops and changes what would otherwise be a fairly subdued and standard black dial into something much more fun and whimsical. Another influence that I see on the dial design is the classic Dirty Dozen field watch layout. I think the White Dawn colorway in particular really hits a lot of those classic cues. That teal chapter ring is reminiscent of the railroad track chapter ring found on the Dirty Dozen watches. the clean Arabic numerals, and of course the small second subdial at 6 o'clock. To me, it looks like they took that gritty World War II military style watch and then reinterpreted it through this minimalist, sugary Bauhaus style. And I like the way they're taking these different influences and sort of fusing them together to combine something new. This is a really fun, interesting design. Two final elements that I think are worth noting here are the 00 at 12 o'clock and the 4 o'clock crown, which you more typically see on dive watches and field watches. These are both unique elements that just serve to give the watch a little bit of extra character. So I think it's clear to see that Primitive House put most of their design work into the dial design, the choice of colors, and that choice with the crown placement. But when it comes to the case design, and particularly strap and bracelet options, that's where I think maybe there was less thought and time put into those elements, which is totally fine given that this watch is coming in at a pretty low price of only $329. The case features a very standard classic sports watch shape, and the finishing on it is primarily polished with some brushed accents. So you get some nice horizontal brushwork on the side of the case, but other than that, everything is completely polished, including the tops of the lugs and the bezel. And when you combine that with the included bracelet, which is very heavily inspired by Rolex's Oyster-style bracelets, and also features a lot of high polish on the mid links, you get a watch that both has a lot of reflections of light and catches fingerprints like crazy. That was one thing that did annoy me, particularly about the bracelet, is I felt like I was always trying to rub the fingerprints off anytime I handled the watch. And that's a good segue to start talking about the bracelet and strap options that they've included here. The good news about the bracelet is that it is very high quality in terms of its manufacture. It features screw links, solid end links, quick release spring bars, making it simple to switch between the included straps, and a solid, well-built clasp that features tool-free micro adjustments. And while having all of those features is a great thing and makes this watch very comfortable on the bracelet, it does feel like maybe Primitive House was kind of rushing it a bit when it came to their bracelet and strap options, given that both the bracelet and the clasp is very heavily derivative of Rolex's Oyster-style bracelets. The included Tropic strap and the two-piece nylon strap follow this pattern, both of which are very high quality, very comfortable on the wrist, and are somewhat generic. And on the one hand, I love that they are giving you all three of these straps here. I think these are all great strap options for this watch, and they look good with it. But I'm a little bit disappointed in that I feel like there wasn't a lot of thought put into matching the perfect strap to this watch, and instead they're giving you a bracelet and two straps that look like three high-quality options you would find on AliExpress. So I think there's a definite trade-off here. You're getting a ton of versatility with all three of these straps, but honestly, I think this design really looks best on a high-quality leather strap. I swapped it over to one of my own, and I really felt like it matched the character of the watch much better, and that's probably the way I would wind up wearing the watch most of the time. But again, I think this is more of a trade-off rather than a negative. You're trading a well-thought-out strap match for versatility and value. And it is impressive how much value is packed into this $329 price point, especially when you begin to take into account the technical specifications of this watch. Most importantly, this watch does feature a sapphire crystal, but what's more impressive to me is the full 200 meters of water resistance along with a screw-down crown that they have included in this design. And that's incredibly impressive in a watch like this. I mean, a 38mm Bauhaus-inspired casual watch could probably get away with a 50-meter water resistance, and I would have been completely happy with a 100-meter water resistance, so for them to double that and throw on a 200-meter water resistance that's equivalent to what you see from most dive watches, that's definitely going the extra mile. And honestly, it's probably more than you would ever need for a watch like this. So yeah, if you want to put this watch onto that Tropic rubber strap and go swimming or even diving, it's totally going to be fine for that. It might look a little odd to take this watch into the ocean, but it's completely capable of it if you wanted to. And somehow, even despite that high water resistance, they managed to keep the case height down to 12mm, which is probably what I would expect given that this watch has a pretty standard Miyota 82S5 movement inside of it. I have a 38mm Seiko Alpinist that also has 200 meters of water resistance, but that one's 13mm thick and it costs twice as much as this watch. Anyways, let's jump back and talk about the movement here. This is again the Miyota 82S5. So this is one of Miyota's basic movements. It does feature hacking, which is great to see. And as far as reliability and performance goes, this is going to be extremely similar to Seiko's entry-level movements like the NH35. However, Miyota seems to offer a lot more variety in their 8000 series of movements when it comes to things like complications or giving you options like a small seconds hand. And I think that small seconds hand was integral into the design of this watch, so it makes sense that they would choose this movement to go with it. Finally, let's talk about the lume on this watch. And the lume is fine. On a watch with printed Arabic numerals like this, it's really difficult to get high-powered lume. I've seen the Swiss watch company do it on their Hyper G, but they're definitely the exception and not the rule. But on this watch from Primitive House, you're getting lume performance that's maybe slightly better than you would expect looking at the price and the design of this watch. When this thing gets exposed to bright sunlight or gets hit with a powerful flashlight, you're going to get a pretty pleasing initial glow that will last for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. The lume is BGW9, so it gives a cool blue glow in the dark, but it's not going to last you long into the night, and on my J-score tests, it came in with a score of 3. So overall, I really like the dial design and the colors. I like the way they've taken these different inspirations and mixed things together. And while I might have preferred one really good strap that matches the watch, I do like the versatility that having those strap options gives you. It's really fun to play around with those 3 options, especially with the quick release spring bars. I could definitely see myself putting it on the nylon strap when I go for a hike and sort of lean into those field watch origins. And while it's super cool that this watch is completely capable of doing anything in the water, if I was going to be swimming, I'd probably switch over to a dive watch that day. But if you like the idea of having just one watch that can do everything, then maybe this is a really good option for you. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. Drop me a comment down below and let me know what you think of this watch. Especially curious which of the 3 strap options you like the most and how you would personally wear this watch if you got it. If you're interested in picking this watch up, I'll leave a link to Primitive House down below in the description. And if you're interested in getting a t-shirt or a hoodie like this one that I'm wearing, I've got a lot of cool designs over on my website at justthewatch.com. Do me a favor and check those out as well. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye.